jump in and do the drawing from last week. I have a basic white, very vanilla, and craft note card and envelope, one masking sheet, and the note card that I made last week. So let's get these names put in here and do our drawing. Okay. And our comment winner from last week is, let's see who I have here. Wendy. Well, congratulations, Wendy. Okay, let me put this off to the side here. I'll get that off to you, Wendy. And before we start with tonight, let me just tell you, after the video last week, I took this box apart and I looked at it and I put it back together, 1, 2, 3. So I guess it was just being on air and worried about doing it, but it actually went together quite easily once I was just sitting here all by my little self putting it together. Okay, tonight we're going to talk about ink. From time to time, I've had questions about what ink is what, so I just thought we would go over the basics of ink tonight. Stampin' Up! Sells a variety of inks. We have our classic Stampin' Pad, which is water-based, and it's good for, all of your stamping. And we sell the ink refills to re-ink your ink pads. And then we have Memento ink. This is Tuxedo Black. This here is a great clear crisp black for all of your stamping, and you can also use this with your blends. Because this is water-based, you then would use alcohol-based markers for coloring. And of course we have the refill for the Memento. And then we have StazOn ink. This is a permanent ink and the refill. And this we offer in black and brown. And this is good for watercoloring because it is a permanent ink. And we have our craft white, and full disclosure, this is an old one. I did not update it with the new one. That's why it still says Whisper White. But this is craft ink, and we have the re-inker as well. And this is slow drying. You can emboss with this. So if you use the white, you could use clear embossing powder or white embossing powder with it. You can also just stamp on any of your, and actually pretty much any color cardstock. Just the darker the cardstock, the more contrast you would get with your stamping. And if you wanted to just stamp with the white, as I said, it is slow drying, so you would either have to let it dry, otherwise it would smear, or you could dry it on the low setting with your Stampin' Heat tool. And then we have Versamark. This is a clear kind of, I always say kind of like a sticky ink. And we do have the refills for this as well. And 2 things you can do with this. You can just stamp on cardstock, and you will just get the faint stamped image because it is the clear ink. But what this really is for is embossing, because this also is slow drying ink. So you would stamp your image, and then you would put your embossing powder on, any color, clear, white, gold, silver, etc. You can emboss with any powder with this, and then you would set it with your heat setting tool. You could also, what's neat, if you have the Stamparatus, you could emboss in any of our stamping colors. You first would stamp your image with our classic stamp pad, any color of your choosing. Then you would stamp over it again with the Versamark, and then use clear embossing powder. So that is our Versamark ink, which you use for embossing. Now I just want to go back and talk to you again about our classic Stampin' Pad. This is one that I have not opened yet, so I just want to show you what you do when you open one of these. It is shrink wrapped, so you want to get the packaging off. And then on the back, there are labels. So I always use my snips. You just got to get it started in the corner. And then peel this up. Okay. Now we have, it comes in English, French, German, and then two just plain color labels. So what I always do with my ink pads, I take the English and I put it right side up, of course, here on the front of the pad. Because that way when it is in my ink holder, I can see the name of the ink. And then on the back side, I put one of the blank labels, just so that I can see the color. So if it's turned around on my craft table or whatever, I have an idea of what ink pad is what. And then on the inside, and this is how these ink pads open. It's like a compact. It opens up and then it slides in. And this way, when it's closed, it's actually upside down, so the ink is always to the top of the pad. It doesn't settle in the bottom. And I use the German label, but you could also, if you wanted, you could use French, of course, or you could just use another solid color label inside. And then this one's a little more difficult to get in there, but then I just carefully try and fit it in. Okay, so this way when the ink pad is open, I also know what color it is. And see, now your ink pad is facing up for stamping, and then when you close it, it flips over so that it is kept upside down. And it's a good idea to keep all of your ink pads upside down when not in use so that the ink stays in the top of the pad. For example, with my Versamark, because this is not the flip style, when I store it, I store it this way. And I do the same with my StazOn. And the StazOn comes with this extra protective cover inside. Some people actually take like glue dots and attach that extra cover in here. I usually just lift it off. But when I store it, when it's not in use, I store it this way. And the same with the Memento. I store it upside down. Okay, now for a little re-inking. Make sure I have Memento and not StazOn, because believe me, I have done that. It's a mistake I don't want to make again. You take your re-inker, and I just go along the ink pad. And depending how dry it is, you will tell because it'll just soak that ink right up. So this one wasn't too dry. It also wasn't too moist, but I just add a little more here. And that is how you re-ink your ink pads. Just let that soak in. Now with the Stampin' Classic pads, what I usually do with these when I re-ink them, I have a plastic spoon. I don't have it handy. I use the same spoon. I just wipe it off. Once I put the ink on here, because this type of foam, it doesn't always absorb in as quickly as the felt pads do. So I just move it around with the back of the spoon. Let me see if I thought I pulled my spoon out. Let me just see if it's handy here. I don't know where I put it, but your basic plastic spoon you use at picnics, fast food restaurants, etc. I just use the back side of it and I work the ink into it. And then I just wipe it off and, use it for the next ink pad. Now with our classic stamping pads, you can also watercolor. You can watercolor with the ink refill. When I use that, I usually just put a dab of the different colors on one of the Stampin' Blocks. You can also watercolor from the pad. You can squeeze the pad and it puts some ink in the lid. I really have never been strong enough to get much ink that way, but that is something you can do. Or if you're just doing a little bit of coloring, you can just pick the ink up right from the pad. And if you wanted to watercolor, we have the watercolor brushes. You can also use a blender pen. You can sponge using our blending brushes. And our, I don't know, I think that was a piece of Harry hair on there. Or with our sponge daubers. So if you have any other ink questions, just leave them in the comments, send me a private message, send me an email, and I am happy to answer any of your ink questions. So just to recap, we have our classic Stampin' Pads, which are what you use most of the time when you stamp, along with, here it is, the Memento Tuxedo Black. StazOn is permanent. You use that when you watercolor. The Memento you can also use with your Stampin' Blends. Versamark you use for heat embossing. And the Craft White you can use for heat embossing or just for white stamping. And you can watercolor with the white ink as well. So that, my friends, is everything I have to tell you about ink. And again, each of our ink pads, we do offer the re-inkers for them. For our classic pads, we have the re-inkers in all the colors. I happen to have grabbed, just to show you, Melon Mambo, because I do not have the re-inkers yet for the new ink colors. We have our Craft White, StazOn, the permanent ink, the Memento, and Versamark for our embossing pad. Okay, well, I hope maybe you learned something today. If not, maybe it was just a little refresher for you on the inks. Okay, now I have got to show you what I got in the mail today. Can you guess? Yes, it is. I got the new holiday catalog and the celebration catalog. Ooh, so these will be going out by the weekend to everyone that is on my mailing list for catalogs. And for our little comment gift tonight, I have, these are a celebration item. They are pool party and soft sea foam cards and envelopes. I have not opened them yet. So let's see together what these look like. Ooh, how pretty. The envelope has this. This is a soft sea foam. The envelope has some white leaves on it. Let's see what the note card looks like. Oh, it's actually not a note card. It's a full-sized card. That also has the print on it. And let's find the pool party. Oh, this is so exciting. And Oh, wow, I just see this now. Wait a minute. The inside flaps, look at that. They're printed as well. This is the soft sea foam. And let me find the pool party envelopes. Pool party envelopes, where are you? Do I have to pull this whole thing apart here? Okay, let me pull everything out of here. Oh. And these look all like soft sea foam. Maybe those are the envelopes for both. Let me see what else comes out of this package here. Yep, those look like the envelopes for both cards. Are the insides different? No, they are the same. Okay. Are they all the same? Yes, they seem to be. Okay, so my gift for everyone who comments this week for the drawing is one pool party card and envelope and one soft sea foam card and envelope. All right, everyone. So I hope you enjoyed our little ink info tonight. Leave me a comment. Let me know if you learned anything tonight. Let me know if you have any other questions. I am more than happy to answer them. And I will see you back here next Wednesday, 7 o'clock. Little heads up, we're going to have a craft along. We're going to make a card together. It will be a fun fold card. So I hope everyone will be back joining me next Wednesday at 7. So until then, have a great and crafty week. And I will see you next week. Thanks, everyone. Bye.